And welcome to Positive Fandom. I am your host, and of course, we have with us today Russ Whitfield, my co host. How are you today, Russ?
I'm good, thanks so much. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you. It is always a pleasure to have you here. Missed you last week, but you are back. So that's good. People were asking about you.
Oh,
So
apologies.
so it is wonderful to have you back, Russ. And I do want to say good morning to some of the people who have tuned in. We have Drew Gordon who says, hello. Well, hello to you, Drew Gordon. I hope you are doing well today. Also, want to say hello to Tom Jr. Jackson, my collaborator, moderator, and very good friend here on the channel. We are all goof people. Tom Jr. Jackson, who also has his own channel. Guys, please do check out Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. And thank you, Tom, for everything that you do for the channel. Also, Dino Dinosaur. I love that, Dino Dinosaur. How are you this morning? Dino Dinosaur says, hi, and Russ. Love the show. Has Russ looked at the 2022 BFI London Film Festival for movies to watch with his daughter to make up for missing Predator?
Oh, it's still an open wound, Dino. That is. It's the second time. I think I said last time we got took her when she was quite a bit younger, and we got kicked out of the cinema, and then we couldn't make it. Um, no, in answer to your question, we haven't. She's taken to boxing lately, so she's training 3, 4, 5 times a week at boxing now. She's just been invited to go fight at a white collar boxing event, so frivolity is pretty much off the menu. So if that all goes ahead, that'll be really exciting for Sam. But no, sadly, we haven't yet. But I'm sure there'll be. We always, Dino, always go and see the DCEU movies when they come out on the first day. So I suspect the next cinema date for Sam and Dad will be Black Adam the day it comes out. That's probably par for the course, I think.
Well, it sounds like that's going to
But
be an
thank you.
exciting event, Russ, to go see the next film. Yeah, I guess it is Black Adam. You make a good point about that being the next one.
Mm.
Certainly something to look forward to for sure. And Tom Jr. Jackson does say good morning to both of us. We have Mikey Lito here this morning. Hi, Mikey Lito.
There he is.
Mikey Lito says, good morning. Welcome back, Russ. Hello, Tom and chat. Well,
It's
good
because I
morning.
had to take last week off because Mikey and I agreed on something, and I wasn't prepared for it. Like I needed to step away. I'm kidding, Mikey. I'm kidding.
Well, good morning to you, Mikey Lito. We certainly are glad to have you here. Benjamin Wolf says hello.
Hey, Ben.
And Darth Plato is here saying hi, gang.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that. I got a message from the good Darth Plato offline last week when the sad news of Her Majesty's passing reached us, and he just reached out to say, he was thinking of all of us guys here in the United Kingdom, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for thinking of us at that time. Darth Plato, is really, really thoughtful of you. Thanks so much.
Yes, and Darth Plato, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us during Sunday brunch. And Salway, isn't that what you guys say, Salway?
Salve, yes.
Salway, Darth Plato. And we also have Renz Tolentino with us. Hello, everyone. He says, good morning, Renz. And Renz, guys, is a wonderful artist. Please do check out his work on Facebook and Instagram. Renz, it's always a pleasure to see you. Jerry Minoza is also with us this morning.
Oh, hey,
Hello,
Jerry.
Jerry. Sure hope you are doing well. And guys, it looks like my Stream Elements is finally working, and I do want to mention something about this. I am going to say hello to a few more of you this morning, but for I guess since January, when I first set up my Stream Elements to get chats and donations, I couldn't get access to it, and I worked with the people from Stream Elements trying to figure out what was going on, what was wrong. I thought it was a PayPal issue and a bunch of other things. So it turns out that I managed to figure out that something was wrong, that I was doing something incorrectly. And it turns out, since I stream to YouTube and Twitch at the same time, everything was going towards the Twitch side, and I didn't know I had to kind of log into that separately. So I finally found almost all of the Stream Elements donations that you guys have made, and it's a lot. And I did just want to mention it. I am going to go through part of the list this morning for a little while, just so you guys know that I did get what you sent, and I so appreciate your generosity. So just for the, for your information. We also have Joker Voice with us. Good morning, Joker Voice. Joker Voice says, good morning, chat, and hail Russ, and hail a positive fandom. Stubble McShave is with us
Oh,
too.
there he is.
Hello.
Hey, man.
How you doing, Stubble? So good to see you. We also have Thalia Meyer. Hello and good morning, afternoon to all.
Hello.
As well as, let's see who else. Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington says hello. Well, hello to you. Always good to see you. Rogue Thinker is here. Hello, and Russ, and all of you in the chat. So good to see you, Rogue Thinker. Mario Lopez as well says hi,
Hey,
everyone. And so I believe that's everybody. So, guys, as I said, for some reason, I couldn't see my Stream Elements, and people were incredibly generous. And I'm going to try and do this. God help me. I'm going to share the screen so I can show you what the Stream Elements is actually telling me. Everybody who donated and has been very generous. Hopefully you guys can see it. It starts in January. It starts in January. So this person, Jones, can you see it, Russ? Is it visible?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm looking on my other screen here.
Okay, great, guys. So it looks like Jones bought _5,000, and a bunch of people followed my channel. And this is a tip that I sent to myself just to make sure it was working in January. But if I keep going with all you followers, starts with Adam in March, who tipped $5, and Adam Lupich, Bear Down Ada, tipped $5, saying, I'm loving this channel. I enjoy hearing your takes on Rob's channel and glad to support you here. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Adam. And I'm sorry for not getting to that chat sooner. I also have BK Panther, who tipped $25. Thank you so much, BK Panther, for the $25 tip. It says, have a happy weekend. And that was in April. And I really apologize, guys, for getting to this, but I do want to just say them because I've always on Robert about getting to his super chat. So I was determined to say thank you to the people who gave me donations. Also, Playmobil Kirk, who happens to be Martino Solmoni, for a $50 donation on January 5th. Thank you. Stubble, I finally am seeing your comment, Stubble. I know you're here in the chat for $3. Thank you so much, Stubble, who says, great to see you on Sunday afternoons. Russ, I got the Sharp Collection with Sean Bean on Blu-ray. Have you seen it? If so, what do you think of it? Well, Russ, what's your answer to that?
I do not have it on Blu-ray or DVD, but there is a channel on YouTube that has every single Sharp episode / movie on there. So I've been getting through them recently, and yeah, it's kind of cheesy in places. Is Sharp. Not what I remember what it was like, but it's thoroughly enjoyable Boys Own adventure stuff. Very 90s. How good looking was Sean Bean back in the day?
Gorgeous.
And yeah, but then one of the episodes was really great. It had a very young Daniel Craig playing a rakish officer / boxer who was an enemy of Sharps. And I thought, God, I know that guy. Who is he? A sultry looking guy. Of course, he had black hair and everything. And then, it was bugging me all the way through the show. And of course, it was Daniel Craig, 25, 30 years ago when he was, but a whippersnapper. But there's all sorts of British British actors that you'd recognise in that show. Liz Hurley had a pretty memorable turn in one of them. Pete Postlethwaite was a baddie for a while, and there was an American actor who was big in the 80s. He was in Willow, the guy with the red hair, who's called Red in Willow, and he was in loads of TV stuff back in the day, and he was in Sharp. I mean, it's just kind of like a tour de force, yeah. But Stubble, brilliant. I absolutely love Sharp. Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Stubble, for your generosity. You have been generous on more than one occasion, and we are grateful here at the channel. Also, Jin Korea, who tipped $13.37, who says, I love you, plain and sweet. Thank you so much, Jin Korea. You are so kind to be so generous, and thank you for your kind words. Also, Mary Universe Martino, who had tipped me another $50 tip.
Wow.
Thank you, Martino. You were so generous, such a generous person to the channel. I hope you were well, Martino. I know you're super busy at this time of year, but I promise you, Martino, when I find myself out in your neck of the woods, we are definitely going to go out and have a cup of coffee. Jin Korea also tipped another $4.20, saying good morning to you too, and that was in June. Thank you, Jin. The Basco tipped 333, saying great stream and love talking Star Wars. Well, we sure have a lot to talk about today, Basco. And Jin Korea for another $15 tip, saying supports to keep the light on, even though you shine so bright. In light of the day, keep doing your thing, love. Wow. So generous and so kind. I so appreciate the support that you all have given me. Another $6.90 from Jin Korea, saying, love you. Well, I can only say I love you right back, Jin Korea. I also have a few anonymous tips from August for $6.90. Thank you very much. No message there, but another one for $3.33, saying the Crown is an excellent watch.
Yeah,
And
we were talking
also,
about it last week. Yeah, or the week before last.
absolutely. And I believe that's everyone so far that I didn't mention already on the stream. So I did just want to mention to you guys, I'm probably going to go down the list again next week one more time, just so you know that I do appreciate all the generosity you guys have had towards the channel. I only just found these the records of this and had got access to it this week. I did just want to say thank you so much. You are all so kind. You certainly do make doing the show enjoyable and helping me out. It is so appreciated. So, Russ, how are you
Mhm.
this week?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a good week in terms of pop culture and pop popular entertainment. There's been all sorts of news coming out. One of the things that I did want to, because we've got the elephant in the room of everybody's favorite, lady superhero show, which I have stopped watching. I don't watch She-Hulk anymore. I think you and I have picked over the bones of that on this channel, and I know it's still going on other channels, but this is positive fandom, and I don't have much positive things to say about the show, so I just opted not to watch it anymore. So that was that, and the same actually goes for Rings of Power. I watched the first couple of episodes of that, and it wasn't for me. And I saw a very interesting review, very long review of this of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power by a up and coming YouTuber called the Little Platoon. Um, he's quite a young guy, quite acerbic, but very, very erudite and very, very. I don't agree with him on everything. I have to say he's a Snyder hater, and I'm a Snyder lover, so he can't spare him. But his analysis is spot on, and he's just released a 2-hour analysis of I think, the first 3 episodes of Rings of Power. And one of the things he says in that show, I think, may well make it a little bit more palatable for some people, in that he talks about it being it's not Tolkien because it doesn't acknowledge any of the law. It changes the law. So in some ways, it's almost sort of Tolkien adjacent. And if you look at it at that level and you're enjoying the show, then by all means enjoy the show. I mean, of course, you must enjoy a show if you're going to enjoy it anyway. But I think people are so bent out of shape because it's so anti-Tolkien and everything that it does. But he sort of makes the argument, not convincingly, it's a bit tongue in cheek, but he basically says, if you as a massive Tolkien fan, you can be insulted by this. I'm paraphrasing, but also if you're a big Tolkien fan and you know the law, you know that this lore is completely off, so you don't have to look at it as part of Jackson's world, or Tolkien's world and the world that Jackson recreated in cinema. And I thought that was a quite a decent point. So if it's high fantasy you're after, maybe it is the show for you, as long as you're not grinding your gears over the fact that it's supposed to be Middle Earth.
You know something, you make a lot of very good points. And while I was on Midnight Musings the other night, Robert had shared an article, which I'm just going to bring up for a second because the article itself, goes without saying. Clearly, there are quite a lot of mixed reviews of this show. Although I personally haven't met anyone who absolutely loves the show, but I'm sure there are people who do, and I'm happy for them. We're very happy for them on the channel. We respect you if you love this show. I understand it's great when you find something you love. But unfortunately, this article that came out in Forbes the other day talks about some of the things that they're disappointed in the show as well. And to be honest with you, I think the reason why the disappointment was even greater than the average show is only because of how much money was spent on this show. When you throw in this much money, not just to acquire rights, and they didn't have the full set of rights anyway, but just to even put on a production, you do expect a certain production value. And I've commented that, I felt that the production value, while it was very interesting and definitely different, they were trying to go for a deconstructed look on the show. Even with this sort of avant-garde approach to how they wanted the characters to look, perhaps similar, I still feel that it fell short in execution. So it was a lot of hard work. These guys worked incredibly hard to get to this point. It was a lot of, hours putting in the work to get this. Clearly, you can see in a lot of the scenes that there was a lot of effort. But where I think it falls short for me, Russ, is just the writing. And I think that even if everybody looked a certain way, and they wanted to make a statement and say, well, we didn't want to just copy Lord of the Rings look, we wanted to put you in a different perspective of that world. That's fine. But we didn't get the writing to back that up. And I made a sort of a remark about how there were some scenes that it repeated itself where it said, well, we're in danger. And someone would say, I've seen danger before. And the person would say, you haven't seen this kind of danger. Like that's a common trope or way of using language. You've got to touch this globe, this orb. Well, I've touched an orb before. Well, you haven't touched this orb before. Like it's, I think that, in regards to creativity and imagination, and I mentioned this before, that they could have come up with something a little bit more imaginative than that. For example, why not just let her do what that Hobbit did, where he went and wanted to touch the orb himself. And, Gandalf was keeping it away from him on purpose. Why not have Galadriel be drawn to it and see something evil, or, perhaps maybe not the scene she saw? Make it something that we can imagine might have happened more realistically than someone just leading her to it and saying, well, you've got to touch it. And she says, well, I've already touched orbs before, so I think that there are certain things in it that could have been done more imaginatively. But the other thing that I was going to say is I'm not feeling the fantasy element in this show. It is supposed to be a fantasy show, but I don't feel that way, Russ. I feel like it's, kind of an ordinary adventure style show, but it doesn't have that fantasy that I get normally from Lord of the Rings, even in the Hobbit series, Russ.
Well, as we've said so many times, I think that The Hobbit is going to get a renaissance after this. But there were a few comments that just sort of whizzed past a little while ago. People were talking about, I think it was, Darth Plater saying it expropriates the law. And then Benjamin was saying basically that in response to the little platoon sort of perspective of it being Tolkien adjacent, it's like Benjamin's point is, if they had not made such a big deal about this being adhering to the law, perhaps it would have been given a bit of a better pass. Perhaps if they come out and say, look, those Jackson films, we're not going to attempt to recreate that because these are masterworks, and we feel it would be wrong to try and reinterpret that. We feel it would be wrong to try and reinterpret Tolkien. So we have a little bit of this world, a little bit of this sandbox that we're gonna play in, and we're gonna try and tell a different story within that world. Maybe if they come out and say that, and not so overtly say we're going to write the book that he didn't write, maybe people would be a bit more forgiving of it. But to echo what Mikey Lee always says, there was a lot of hate for this show before it even came out, because of the way it was marketed, because of the comments of the showrunners and the various stars that were trotted out with their messaging that they wanted to promote in advance of the show. All of that's happened, and people were prejudging the show. The show is now out, and people are judging the show, and by and large, look, there's always going to be arseholes out there that are just going to hate on it for hating's sake. But the prepackaged, bog standard response from companies to deflect, criticism now is the toxic fan base. But it seems that actually, with the character that's come out for the most praise in all of this, actually is Disa, the dwarf. It's like her and her husband Balin seem to be the only people with actual characters. And I think it was the little platoon. It might have been him, or it might have been no, it was another guy I was listening to. Basically said they're the only two characters in this show that you can imagine have real lives when the cameras are not on those characters. Like, you can see them living their lives in Khazad-dûm, whereas the rest of them they're existing just to advance a plot. So it's out, it's been judged, and not favorably. And I think ultimately, you are quite correct. The problem is the writing, and it's not great. And it couldn't have come at a worse time for this show, as very quietly, a couple of weeks ago, this one came out with much fanfare and much stuff, and sort of like, slipping in there on the back post with an easy poacher's goal comes House of the Dragon, which nobody trusted, myself included. After what happened with Game of Thrones before, not many people, I think, were looking forward to this one. And my
Yeah.
goodness, how wrong we have been so far.
Yeah, this is you make a good point, Russ. And I'm not going to read this whole article.
Mhm.
Robert covered it, and a lot of people have been talking about this article. And the author just says in the first two paragraphs that the creators of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, they know how to create spectacle, but they do not know how to tell a good story. There it is, scrawled in blood on the wall. The writers and showrunners responsible for the show could have won me over, just like what you said, Russ, with a good fan fiction. They could have tossed Tolkien's lore into a bonfire, and I'd been perfectly happy if they'd simply crafted an enjoyable story with characters I care about. So clearly, that distinction you're talking about, that was also mentioned in the chat and that you've just reiterated here, Russ, a lot of people are saying that because when we see the effort they've put into this could have been good. This could have been very, very good.
Well, it's criminal that it isn't, when you consider the amount of money that they had. Um, but I suppose this is just it's just that, at the end of the day, it's just a product, right? It's kind of, Amazon have bought this thing that they don't really, Jeff Bezos might be a massive fan of it, but he doesn't seem to understand what he's actually bought. And I've heard this said so many times, and it's so true. And there are creators in the chat right now, artists, writers, filmmakers, YouTube content creators. The people that behind this show, the Rings of Power, didn't set out to make a bad show. They might have set out to make political points with their casting, with their overt messaging and all that kind of thing. Fine. But they unfortunately just haven't done a very good job. And it really is a I can be bought. All right, fair enough. Yeah, with all of that money at their disposal, it's unforgivable that the show isn't the greatest show of all time. And as we had Rob's name up there on the screen a minute ago, as he always says, if you put your universe and your messaging and your lore before your story and characters, you're on a sticky wicket, you're on a hide into nothing, and that's going to fail. And
Yeah,
there's the
absolutely.
proof.
And Darth Plato, to answer your question about the price, Joker Voice has been so kind to not only tell us that people were approached to maybe give a favorable review, at least that's what I think Joker Voice is alluding to, but also that the price of House of the Dragon episodes were 20 million, while the Rings of Power, which I just keep calling Rings of Fire. I have no idea why. Cost around 60 million, and we know that that money went somewhere. I also want to mention that Tom Jr. Jackson is promoting Chris the Girl's channel for museums, parks, spooky adventures, and so much more. Guys, check out that channel right before this amazing Halloween season. You certainly do want to check it out. And hello to the hidden. Hello to you.
Hey, he is revealed once again.
Yes, great to see you. And Retro Nerd Girl is here this morning. Hello, Retro
There
Nerd
she is,
Girl.
everyone's favorite. Morning to you, Retro Nerd Girl.
Guys, please do check out Retro Nerd Girl's channel. Um, um, you know something? I think that looking at this from the outside in, um, and as an ordinary person who is going to be watching this, and maybe they didn't watch the Lord of the Rings films, although I doubt that there's anybody who hasn't seen those Lord of the Rings films because they were so incredibly popular. Um, I think that, honestly, going forward, because Amazon has this reach, that more people will see this, let's say over the next year, maybe it's a whole year. And they'll just turn it on because Amazon will push it through. They'll automatically feed it. Whenever you turn on Amazon Prime, it's going to pop up and you're going to see it advertised, and you'll click on it, and sometimes you'll end up watching part of it. I mean,
Well,
there
maybe
is
so,
no way.
but I'm gonna come in here. You see, I think, yeah, maybe for episode 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4. But even if you're not a massive nerd, if you are not a Tolkien lore fan, all right. So let's just take that out of the equation. Let's just say you're Joe Normal and you've heard a lot about this stuff and you've seen the Lord of the Rings films. You're gonna sling this on, and it's just not very good. It's just not good. So yeah, they can ram it down your throat as much as they want, but ultimately it doesn't matter how slick it looks, how amazing it looks, and which I don't actually think it does. It goes against my mental convention of what things should be like. Maybe that's more my problem than the shows. But the show itself is just not good. It's not well written. I don't care about anything that happens. Didn't care enough to I stopped watching it. It's like I can't be bothered with this anymore. I don't know who anybody is. I can't remember their names. I don't care about their journeys. Whereas with its direct competitor, Hello Mark Goes Blind Gaming, House of the Dragon, all of a sudden, I do care. And House of the Dragon does have political messaging, which they've been very clear about. What perhaps too clear in these after party things that they keep releasing. But if you look at that show on its surface, yeah, it's making a point about the patriarchy. They'll never take a. Men would rather bathe the realm in blood than have a woman on the Iron Throne. All of that stuff, but it's so well done. It's so well acted. It's so well performed. It's subtle. And sorry. Do we want to plug Joker Voice here?
Yeah, guys, please do check out Joker Voice's channel, Joker Voices. Oh, and just a shameless plug for myself, 19 away from 300 subscribers. Just saying, guys, I think Tom Jr. Jackson is, if he hasn't already put Joker Voices link in the chat, please do check out Joker Voice, everybody.
Yeah, so I think with House of the Dragon, it's a grown-up show written by grown-ups for grown-ups, and nobody is whiter than white, and nobody like the only sort of truly good character in that show seems to be the king, Veneris. He seems to be like, is it Veneris? Yeah, he seems to be the only sort of decent guy. And what I really love is the way that they've now. Well, let's talk about episode 3 first of all.
Yes.
Now, obviously, I wasn't here last week, so this was, it's perhaps old news for everybody else. But you and I certainly haven't discussed this.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you saying, "Hey, film guy, I remember you saying the week before, my hiatus, there hasn't been a big battle in this show. And I was saying, well, maybe that they haven't got the same money that Rings of Power have got, and we need, maybe they're saving the big battle up for, like a big climactic thing. And then what did we get the very next episode? Well, we got a big battle scene. And what I loved about that particular episode was not so much that it was a spectacle, and it was a lot of spectacle. It was how they told you so much about Daemon Targaryen and who he is and what he does. And when I was replaying it in my mind, he doesn't say anything. All right. So the king loves his brother. He doesn't want him to fail, and they are failing. So he then says, I can't send men, it'll look weak. And the wife says, well, yeah, but they're losing. We need to do something. So he then decides that he's going to send reinforcements to help Daemon. And on hearing this news, Daemon attacks the messenger and
Yes,
then
he does.
goes,
Yeah.
yeah, and then goes off on essentially what is a suicide mission to try and draw these, because they made the point, the reason why they're not winning is because the pirates won't come out and fight. They're
Excuse
conducting a
me, just
guerrilla war.
1 second. Hello, Lord Toth, and hello, Big Dog Pound One.
Hey
Hello.
guys. Yeah, they're not coming out to fight. It's the classical guerrilla tactics against a bigger army. So he then does this suicide run, pulls them all out, and then of course they come out to kill him, and that leaves the opening then, and then there's the big fight. Well, what does it reveal about this character? He would rather die than see himself put in a position of owing anybody anything, and decides now to act and perhaps die in the attempt rather than his have to owe his brother one, is essentially. And he did it and they convey all of this without saying a word. He doesn't say anything. He just beats the bloke up, gets on the boat, and goes and does his thing. And then there's just that iconic shot of him coming out with the body that he's cut in half. And there were so many great moments that tell you so much about the character, like right at the beginning when the soldier's been tortured, like the crabs are eating him alive, and he's screaming, "Save me, my lord, save me!" And the dragon just lands and crushes him. And all of this is so well written, because it shows you how much of a crap Damon gives about the rank and file. He doesn't. He's all about himself. I loved it. It was a battle when we needed a battle, like you said. It looked brilliant, and every show needs somebody epic. I'm reminded, I'm rewatching Vikings at the moment, and they've just killed off one of my favorite characters. And so that show's gonna oh, I'm upset about that. But this character is epic, and it's someone that everybody can sort of get behind and love to watch him chew the scenery. So I don't know what your thoughts were on episode 3. I guess we'll come to episode 4 in a minute. But I can't give it 11 out of 10. But if I could, I would. Some commentators have said, it's not that great. It's just that everything else is so bad that this appears greater than it actually is. Maybe so. That could be the case. But I am lapping it up, and I am looking forward to every episode. I can't wait to find out what's going to happen. It feels like season 1 of Game of Thrones in that way. Like I'm invested in the characters. I want to know what Corlys has been doing, and he hasn't been in it much at all, but that he's bubbling away in the background. That was episode 3. What did you think?
Yeah, I loved episode 3. I'm just trying to refresh my memory of what happened in that episode, and I can see that in it, as you said, he needed to win that battle. And also, we didn't see a lot of action, but we got to see it in that episode. Also, what else happened in that episode? His friend is still trying to scheme. The king's friend is still trying to scheme to have his child or his daughter's child named as the successor.
Otto Hightower.
Yes. And, I think that someone was saying, or at least the film guy says, I think he wanted to win the battle himself so that he could claim he should be king when his brother dies.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, this is his goal. And here's the thing about a character being epic and not epic at the same time. Like, this guy is severely flawed. Like, you can even see it sort of sexually, if you like if he's not in complete control, he has a hard time performing, right? We saw this with him before. He wants to be the king, but now his literally favorite niece has been named as as the heir to the throne. And you can see, the way Matt Smith performs it, the way he looked at her up until last episode. He genuinely loves her. Like, he genuinely loves his niece, and he's not gonna, so far, won't allow anything to harm her. But in order to get what he wants, he has to eliminate her. So now you have a character who's epic with a massive conflict. There's also spiritually, if you like, fairly weak in his own way. He overindulges with stuff. He has a need to be in. He's a control freak, and if he's not in control, he's uncomfortable. So yeah, so you had all of that. You had the Wild Hunt as well, where we reveal a little bit more about Daenerys, Rhaenyra's relationship with the Knight, and she has the. It was quite interesting. She has the opportunity to kill the White Hart, and by thus doing, strengthen her claim to the throne, and she chooses not to. And you think, oh, isn't she nice? But then, as we come on to episode 4, we find out, she's also got her own ways of being. So, but yeah, I think even the small stuff in that episode, like when you saw Damon with blood in his hair, and you saw her with blood in her hair. Hers from killing the boar, his from massacring half the pirates. But it's just little touches like that that make this so much better than its competition. Yeah, so I thought the battle was well staged. You can see that the allies aren't really allies, and then none of them are really getting along. Yeah, it's just wonderfully written stuff.
Yeah, and Darth Plato makes an interesting point when he says that the war with the crab people doesn't make sense. The crabs' hide tactics only make sense if you have room to maneuver, but they're hiding in the same caves. The failure of Westeros is inexplicable. So that is a very interesting comment, and thank you,
I
Darth
wonder
Plato.
how they tackled it in the books, because what a lot of people have said, and I haven't, I'm not a George R.R. Martin reader, but maybe it's explained a little bit more than that, or perhaps it just has to happen that way, because plot needs to happen. But you see Darth Plato, yes, tactically, realistically, you're quite correct, but I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about the holes in it, because the show had me engaged. It sort of reminded again of the Last Jedi, when none of it makes any sense about the millions of Star Destroyers and them not shooting the bomber, and then them chasing a thing in sublight. All of that, you notice it because the story has failed. This, for me, I wasn't thinking about it tactically. I was just like, my God, look, this dude's a loony, and I'm engaged in Damon's story, and I've completely missed that valid point.
Absolutely. And Retro Nerd Girl makes a comment. She says, the clear difference I can see about the two shows is that House of the Dragon is dealing with all of the characters playing the Game of Thrones, while Rings of Power is mainly about one character.
Yeah, true say, but she's not really a character, and this is where they've written themselves into a problem. In that, we've talked about this like many times, about this sort of Disney Marvel style, and obviously it's not Disney Marvel, but it's a Disney Marvel style of writing female characters as making them flawless, and like, we can't give them struggles, and we can't give them flaws, and we can't give them weaknesses. You've got to be brilliant from the get-go, and we can't be seen in any way to have any woman that is not great. So how do you get invested in that character? Whereas you've got this character you've got on screen now, who's a sort of alcoholic, sometimes impotent schemer, who desperately wants to be on the throne, has questionable desires towards his own niece. Is he trustworthy? Does he love the? You don't know anything about. You don't know anything about him. You know everything about him to know that he's unpredictable enough to do anything, and he's a flawed, weak man in the same way that the King Viserys is a decent man trying to do the right thing and getting it terribly wrong, because to win the Game of Thrones you've got to be horrible, and Viserys is not horrible. But we see in episode 4, Rhaenyra starting to learn the craft of queenship and deceit and lies, which, we'd seen none of that before. And now she's lying to save her own skin. She's getting rid of the king's hand. In other words, she's playing the game of high politics. She's saying, well, if okay, I'll do my duty, but you've got to do something for me. Brilliant. Loving it.
It absolutely is brilliant. I certainly am seeing a lot of comments from you guys. First of all, I wanted
Yeah,
to
let's
say
catch up.
hello. Yes, to Woodrow, who says he also knew his brother's army wouldn't help since the enemy was entrenched. So in a way, he protected his brother. That is very interesting.
It's true, but I don't think from the way that was shown that's you're quite correct. Exactly so. Yeah, tactically that's strategically, tactically that's correct. But I don't think that was in Damon's mind. In Damon's mind, it's I'm going to look bad if I'm rescued from this situation, which I engineered and I started, and now I need my big brother to come and bail me out. A character like that will not countenance it. He needs to be in control. He needs the laurels, and he needs to be hailed as, as we were saying a couple of weeks ago, Imperator in the field, right? He's the hero of the day, and he didn't need any help to do it, and he's prepared to die rather
Yes.
than fail.
And Laura Toth says, I actually haven't watched it yet because I'm waiting for Mrs. Toth.
Oh my god! I'm sorry we didn't put spoilers.
Sorry, Laura Toth. Maybe I should just maybe grab a banner really quickly. If I have something here that says spoilers. Oh, goodness, help me. But yes, guys, sorry about the spoilers. I apologize. Let me just add in a banner that says spoilers. Just 1 second. Hold on. So I apologize for that. Let me just scroll it across the bottom. Is it there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And I did also want to mention good morning to Woodrow. Woodrow, if I haven't said that, I can't remember. If I said yes, I did say good morning to you. Also, the other thing, darn, I can't remember what I was going to focus on, guys. But what I was going to say is I pulled up a picture, Russ, of one of the many reasons why House of the Dragon is very interesting is because of this actor, Matt Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been watching him in everything else. The Crown is one of the certainly one of the shows that I've seen him a lot in, but he has appeared in many other shows as well. He played Prince Philip in The Crown, and I mentioned this last week, but certainly he is playing the prince who is trying to get this power back from his brother. And it seems like he could be able to achieve it if done right. But Russ, we certainly do see a lot of manipulations in episode 4 by the prince towards the princess. We see a situation where they actually do have, and someone has mentioned this before, they have a kind of chemistry. And I think we know what, what I'm talking about. From uncle to niece, there is some kind of chemistry going on between the two of them. And they certainly do have this understanding. In episode 2, when she went to confront him about the dragon's egg, she brought her dragon and got it from him. He gave her the egg because he likes her. I have a feeling he would have fought that dragon if it had been anybody else, Russ. But he knows that he has to keep a rapport with her to make her feel like, he's on her side. He manages to, I'm not going to say lure her out of her safe and secure castle house, but let's just say she is bored. And this chick likes to go out on the road and kill wild boars and hang out with her, her champion, right? So he knows that she's going to love to dress up as a guy, go out at night, and he takes her to this bordello or whatever place you want to call it, Russ. But I want to know that address because wherever he took her, it was a fun, salacious time. He knows what he's doing. And looks like he's trying to seduce her. According to Darth Plato was saying as soon as she shows any interest, he kind of backs off.
This goes back to what I was saying before about him wanting to be in control, especially in sexual situations. And as soon as she's into it and she's now wanting to seduce him, pulling him into the wall and so on and so forth, and he backs off. It's subtle. He doesn't want to know. He wants to be the dominant one. And as soon as she decides, no, it's me, and that relationship, that sexual encounter between the two of them, even though it was not consummated in the end, that's kind of what's going on in these two's particular Game of Thrones. They love each other. They perhaps want each other in that way, or perhaps not. It's a very Targaryen thing to do, but it's also mirroring what's happening with their ascension to the throne. He wants to be in charge, but he loves her and he doesn't want to hurt her, and she wants to be in charge, and she knows that she has to be strong and dominant, especially being a woman, otherwise she'll never be taken sort of seriously. And moreover, she sort of goes home drunk and horny and shags the bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
She takes sexual control of the situation. She's the one that pulls him in by literally in the, which is what by grabbing his helmet and not giving it back to him until she gets what she wants.
That's
you know
right.
she goes, and then she goes and lies to her best friend. My virtue could not ever be questioned, lying about it.
Russ, every woman lies about who they slept with, Russ. So
Absolutely.
please, give us a break here.
Absolutely. I know. The amount of
I'm
people I've paid off to lie favorably about me is long and distinguished.
Even in Westeros, Russ, even in
Even in
Westeros, women
Westeros. But the point being, she's lied to her best friend in order to maintain her position of power. She's gotten rid of the hand of the king because he is a potential threat to her ascending the throne. She knows, everybody knows that he wants his grandson to be put on the throne, and now he's been pushed to one side because the king loves his daughter and he puts her first, even that he knows that she's lying, and that's why he gave her the potion at the end to enact in a to stop whatever's going to happen happening. We don't know if she's drunk that or not, but we do know that the king knows. But the fact that Rhaenyra is now lying to everybody, in perhaps even up until including herself, to maintain her position, says a lot about that character's development, going from sort of 16-year-old girl to sort of 20-year-old or whatever she's supposed to be now. She knows the game that she's in. Look at us talking about this, like, we're into it, man. Like, even thinking about it, it's cool.
Yes, of course. I did kind of make a joke about lying about how many men you've been with. And I'm sure if you are not a woman, but you're someone who likes men, maybe you do lie about that as well. But certainly it's not anything you want to talk about with your mother or father, or even, let's say, your stepmother or stepfather. Even if that person was your best friend, you're not going to throw all of that vulnerability out there. Certainly, from what people could see, even she knew she was being followed. People were actually saying, and it is true, that he kind of took advantage of her. But when she got home to the castle, Russ, as you mentioned, that handsome soldier of hers standing right outside the door. Oh my gosh, lucky girl. She certainly did enjoy herself. And I think that he's been thinking about her that way too. I don't think he was going to pass up a chance to be with the princess. Now, one other interesting thing I did want to say is that this is from a female gaze. And I think that this is a realistic scenario. Of course, she's going to be looking towards a man she trusts. This guy's been nothing but kind to her, fulfilling his duty in more ways than one now. Um, Also, one other thing they did in the episode, and it's not that big of a deal, but I did just want to mention it, is that somebody sent her a medicinal herb to take care of things.
That was
Now,
her dad. That was like from her father.
that's what I love about this show, is that it's realistic. They wanted to let you know that someone was looking out for her just to make sure, but we may be concerned about this in the future. She's going off to be married. Who knows what will happen, Russ, in regards to who she has. Let's say if she does have a child. This is really quite a progression in this story. And I love when they use sex to progress a story. I love when they do that. And they were very careful. Another viewer had asked me, why didn't we see more of a salacious love scene between her and Cole? And I think it's because, and I've noticed this on the show, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but House of the Dragon doesn't necessarily show you the younger actresses completely nude. They don't do it. They tend to just show like maybe from the neck up or whatever.
It's a
And the
lot less
reason,
salacious than Game of Thrones in that regard. I mean, there are there's TNA in this show, but there was certainly a hell of a lot more in Game of, that was one of the USP of Game of Thrones, wasn't it? It was the sort of nudity and the sex, and they seem to have they've kept that, but it's not so overt as it was in Game of Thrones.
yes, and the film guy says she took advantage of him. Also, he can't say no to her. Well, you know what, the film guy, I will keep that in mind the next time I have my guard outside of my door. Certainly. Um, now, the other thing I wanted to say is Dog Pound One says so much drama on House of the Dragons. I love it. Russ, it is really interesting that we are seeing these situations. The young actress who plays the queen wrote mentioned in an article, I can't remember which trade it is, but she says that I felt uncomfortable being around the man who's supposed to be my husband because he's in his 60s. And she mentioned I had to have somebody there. That's why it was good to have that intimacy person, because it felt creepy. And I'm thinking to myself, well, something, that is true. He is older. She's going to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to admit that you don't feel comfortable doing that. But what I was glad that they didn't show more with Cole and with the princess for that reason. Now, the other thing I was going to say is she's off to get married, Russ. And although this is what everybody wanted, I noticed that the king told his advisor, hit the road, Jack. But he's not gone, right, Russ?
Yeah, Otto Hightower's not going to take this lying down, is he? I mean, he's quite. See, again, he's nominally the villain of the piece because Rhaenyra is the protagonist, and he's now in the role of the antagonist. But actually, his motivations are pretty pure in wanting to protect the throne and protect the realm. And yeah, he's ambitious and he wants his bloodline on the throne and he wants his grandson to be on the throne. But he's not plotting the king's downfall, or certainly wasn't so far. He was just pushing for his grandson to be put on the throne. But he's done nothing wrong, essentially. But now he's been slighted, and I'm sure he's not going to take it lying down. It's delicious. So this is what's going to happen to the night. Like you say, if what if she is pregnant and doesn't take off, take the tea that she was told to take, and all of a sudden the baby appears and it's not quite what they resembles who they expected to resemble. There's going to be all sorts of problems. Will she turn ruthless like Cersei Lannister and have that knight killed? I mean, you just don't know, because they've revealed now she's got not a darker side so far, but at least a deceitful side. Like she lied, or an omission, as Joker Voice said.
No, you are right. This is a lie by omission. She lied. But Russ, she couldn't say yes. I couldn't go ahead and say yes to something like that. I couldn't go ahead and say yes and say, yeah, I was with doing that out in God knows where with who knows what. That's not something most people would confess to. I think that she needed to
Sure, but it's the
herself
reason.
a little
It's
bit.
the reasons why she didn't do it. It wasn't because her dad would be angry with her, and because her best friend would feel that she was a little bit slutty, as she says to her father. Damon says, we fucked our way through the entire, all the brothels of Westeros, or whatever it was. And then later on, she says, if I was a man, I'd be, commended for having, I could have 100 bastards. And he said, yeah, but you're not a man.
It's
She's
true.
she's not lying because she thinks her dad will be ashamed of her, because as Joker Voice points out here, this is, and was deliberately done, with Rhaenyra being free and Alicent performing her duty. I mean, the two scenes, that was absolutely right. But Rhaenyra's not lying because dad's going to be cross, and No, she's lying because if she's found out, it will jeopardize her position, as her father explains to her. You're
Certainly.
not.
And you and I both know that Damon, I think that's his name, did this to accelerate things.
Mhm.
She wasn't marrying anybody, and he wanted to put her in a position where her father was like, "That's it. You've got to get married right now. That's it." And it
Well, he
worked.
wanted her to marry him. That's what he said. He said, "Well, marry her to me,"
Yes,
because it's a very Targaryen thing to do, right?
it certainly is. And I'm not gonna cross judgment on that. I'm not gonna go ahead and say, oh my gosh, or whatever. I'm certainly not. But what I am going to say is that it certainly moved the plot along for him in a sense, but not the way he wanted. But it did accelerate the path of events now. She's
Mm.
being shipped off somewhere to be married to somebody. And it feels very disconnected from being around her father now. So I'm just curious. And of course, I did want to mention that Mario says he's sad that they're replacing the two young actresses. I guess because there's a time gap, right, guys?
Mhm. Mhm.
A time jump. It is true, but I guess they have to do that, or else they're just going to look too young. And looking too young is not a bad thing. Drew Gordon says the main problem with fantasy shows is that every week one is inevitably reminded that all the characters are too reactionary, conservative to connect a kettle to a wheel and thereby invent steam power. Okay. Okay. I hear you, Drew Gordon. Thank you for sharing that comment with us. Um, Darth Plato says, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Now that Hightower is out of office, he now has more time to plot, as you said. That goes along with what you were saying, Russ. And guys, Six Scale Cantina is here. Hello, Aries Tarrington. Good morning to all. Drinking some fresh brewed Cantina coffee, guys, and enjoying Mmmm and Russ. And I'm going to be on Aries show tomorrow night at 8:15 p.m. on the Six Scale Cantina Network with Aries. So, guys, please do check that out tomorrow, Monday night at 8:15. And I can't wait to see you, Aries. We certainly will have a lot to talk about. And yes, Joker Voice says it's the last episode with those current actresses playing Rhaenyra and Alicent. And guys, check out Russ Whitfield's check out Russ Whitfield's I can't talk webpage. Check out his webpage, guys. Check out his work. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Also, let's see what else we see. Joker Voice says her betrothed husband prefers the company of men. If you know the lore. No, I didn't know the lore, Joker Voice. Thank you for letting me know. This gets even better. Damon gets his wish and marries Rhaenyra. Oh, wait, is that what happens in the book, Joker Voice?
Must be.
Okay. That is so bizarre. So, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Keely Chow. Hello, Keely Chow.
Keely.
Such a pleasure to see you. Roll Tide, Keely Chow. And certainly glad to see you here this morning. And so an answer to you, The Hidden. It's at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that I will be on Six Scale Cantina on the Market Show with Aries Tarrington. Guys, check out Lorena Creole's channel as well that Tom Jr. Jackson has put in the chat. Please do check that out. And we're almost at the 1 hour mark, Russ, which means I'm going to want to play my promo that CJ has made for me. He is so fantastic. Thank you, CJ. You are the best. He made this promo for me. It's Positive Fandom promo. And thank you so much, Joker Voice. I love to hear that. I love that guy may not be interested in her and she may have to find affection somewhere else. Maybe she brings along Cole, but we can see that her uncle has other things in mind. So I love stuff like that. And I'm going to play my promo just for a minute. It's only like 30 seconds or so, but we will be right back. Don't go anywhere, guys. I'm going to play it right now. All righty, you guys. Welcome back to Positive Fandom. I know it was just a few seconds. Thank you, CJ, for this great intro and outro. I played in the middle. I probably played at the end. Russ, I want to ask you a question about before we move on to Cobra Kai. Before we move on to Cobra Kai, it was so good. I want to ask you, is the fact that her uncle tried to have sex with her a foreshadowing of what's going to happen in the story?
Yeah, but I don't. I didn't know that they were going to get together and end up married or anything like that. As I said, to me, it was more about his control issues and their dance around the Game of Thrones. That's what it looked like to me. Is they're always going to be vying for power. Hey, Bloodsport. They're always going to be vying against each other. One wanting to be the dominant party in in a different way to Daenerys and Jon Snow. Like Jon Snow just didn't want any part of it, and she needed his constant reassurance that he wasn't going to take up his position. Well, especially when they found out he was part Targaryen or something like that. But this seems a much more overt conflict of ambition, tempered by their love for each other, perhaps even a bit of their lust for each other. Who knows? But as I said from the beginning, it's clear that he loves her in whatever way that is, sexually or as an uncle or both or whatever it is. He doesn't want bad things to happen to her, but that goes against his ambition. So I think that it was just a metaphor. For me, it was just a metaphor anyway.
Oh my gosh, I didn't look at it from that point of view because the way I looked at it, just I'm not what my point of view of it is perhaps not what the authors intended. But
Mhm.
when I look at the situation, if it were me, thank God it's not, but if it were me and my uncle took me to a brothel or whatever, start like wanted to make out with me, I'd probably be very disgusted and be like, what the hell are you doing? That's not cool. And then leave me there. And as Darth Plato had said, he took the hat off so people would see her. If
Mm.
if someone had done that to me, I wouldn't be happy with them for doing that to me. It kind of like the equivalent of taking, a photo and posting it on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. Personally, I wouldn't be happy with it. Now, I would still go home and see if I could find, Cole, but still, I still would not be happy with that man who would do that. That seems to be something that's very strange. And what's really funny, Russ, is that she didn't talk about that. Her focus was on the advisor, and she very craftily told her father, look at what's happened. This
Mm.
guy is manipulating you. And he really, it is true that he's been doing it all along, and as you said, it's justified, but she was able to use that, I guess, maybe to strike back a little bit at what she felt was interference. Although from what I could see before, I don't feel like she maybe felt that. She never played her card before or her hand before. So
This was
I
the
think
key moment, though, wasn't it? Her going to that town, going out, watching the show, because the show was very important. This is a device that they use in the Northman as well, where the mimes, the performers, are the only ones that are actually sort of telling the truth, and people are booing the fact that she's going to be queen. But as Joker Voice pointed out, you've got that scene where the king is, having sex with Alicent, and she's just sort of lying there as he's, humping away, and then you've got the contrast of, Renara, having a romantic, wonderful, sexy time again in a dominant role sexually. She was the one that initiated it and all that kind of stuff. You had that sort of contrast there, but what Renera also says, and this is, they've shown this in her actions of going sneaking out with her uncle, getting drunk, being willing to sleep with him, and then not getting any action there, so she goes home and gets some action at home. And what she says to Alison is, I can't imagine how shit it must be being locked up in a castle, being forced to pump out airs, and then realize, and then she goes, oh shit, because that's exactly what has happened to her best mate. She's locked up in a castle being forced to pump out airs. And you can see that, and this is where all this stuff about, anti-patriarchy stuff that they bang on about, this is them illustrating it in the show. She's not gonna be a typical female that you would have in Westeros. She is gonna challenge the gender norms of her tribe, but it's been done in such an engaging way nobody is bent out of shape about the messaging, because they're making a point about our society in a well written, well thought out, well constructed way, with interesting characters that you care about, that have their own agendas. All of them have their own agendas, and nobody's talking about how woke this show is. Nobody is, and it might be the wokest thing ever. They've come out pretty clear and said this is what we're doing here. But the show is so good, it doesn't. The story has taken precedence. The characters have taken precedence over the message, and yeah, sure, we can see what the message is, but who cares? It's a brilliant story.
Absolutely. And I did want to mention Bloodsport One says good morning and hello. Woodrow says spoiling an episode everyone had a chance to see is one thing, but spoiling the plot from the books is a bit much in my opinion. Well, we're sorry, Woodrow. Okay, I
We
do
didn't
have to
know. We didn't know.
yeah, I'm sorry. So I apologize. I certainly apologize for that. Okay. But that's why I had to ask Russ about about the foreshadowing. I just
Yeah.
wanted to get a sense because these things do happen in stories. You see the person together in the beginning, you might see them again later on. Joker Boy says, I can tell you about the outcome. I'm sure you can. And Darth Plato
It's
says,
not Joker voice.
Darth Plato says, I predict Cole is the father, but everyone thinks it's Damon's. And
He
I
might be
love it.
right. You might be right, because there's this whole thing about him not being able to perform if the woman's taking control, and clearly she wants to take control. So you might have this sort of relationship where they're married for this. Who knows? Who knows? It's not predictable. I can't tell you. I'm just excited to find out.
And I do want to mention that tomorrow night, also at 6 p.m., guys, join me at 6 p.m. Pacific, Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific on the Post Geek Singularity channel. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett's channel for my show, Ladies of the PGS, live for sex, pop culture, horror, and so much more. Well, maybe it's not live for sex, but let's just say it's live where we'll talk about sex, sexual situations. That does kind of sound like a little different advertisement, doesn't it? Well, maybe you're right, Tom Jr. Jackson. Certainly I will be talking about sex and sexual situations because I have a feeling we might see more on tonight's House of the Dragon and so much more. Thank you so much, Tom, for putting that up there. My show, Ladies of the PGS, premiered last week, and thousands of you sent, well, at least 1,000 of you actually watched the show. And thank you for all of your support with that. I do appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. on the PGS, guys. You know where the Post Geek Singularity is, Robert Meyer Burnett's channel. Please do check it out, guys. So Russ, I certainly do want to talk about, oh yes, and there is no Let's Get Physical Media on the PGS today, guys. So just so you know, I want to start talking about, and I'm sorry, Mario Lopez's life is terrible in the Middle Ages. I love all your comments, guys. Definitely appreciate you doing this. Jacob Ironside is here today.
Hey, Jake.
And I want to talk about, yes, you'll have to tune in, Bloodsport One. I want to start talking about Cobra Kai, Russ. And, I have to say, Russ, one of the things that you and I have been talking about is pretty much what is the secret to doing a reboot for, an 80s style show? Because we've seen so many attempts at this, but this is the one show that seems to get it right.
It does. It's nailed it now for 5 seasons, and it smashed it out of the park. I mean, some people say season 2 is pretty weak. I don't know. I've loved them all. I've binged them all. Like the day it comes out, the next week it comes out, I think midnight in the UK. So Saturday morning, whatever it is, I just get up and put Cobra Kai on and don't move until it's finished. What is the secret? The secret is there is no secret to doing this. They have just respected what came before, treated those characters with beloved characters with the respect that they should be treated with, and have introduced new characters that have their own stories that don't contradict or supersede or make wrong everything that was done in Karate Kid. I mean, how many guys are there out there like Johnny Lawrence? I still listen to 80s music and wear Iron Maiden t-shirts. It's I'm not saying I'm anything like Johnny Lawrence, but there is a there are guys of our age that love all of that stuff, that grew up watching these movies. They know that guys and girls about in their 40s and 50s will have been kids, watched these movies, gone to the cinema, seen them all thousands of times. So you've got that audience, and you've got the younger teenage audience. And at no stage does it do the writers of Cobra Kai poo poo the Karate Kid. Like, every single movie is canon. Everything that happened is taken seriously, and because they've obviously got more time, the characters are given more depth, and their motivations are more understood, and you understand why Chosen did what he did and why Kreese turned out how he, because all of that, they've got all of these hours to fill with that story. But it's about respect. It's about having people that have a genuine love for. I think that's what it is the showrunners and the studio bosses have an accord. They're in accordance, and the studio bosses have allowed the people that love the show to run with it. And at no stage are they. It's just not a preachy show. They make fun of both woke people and anti woke people, and Johnny's like a sort of poster boy for something that isn't woke, and you've got the people at the school, the guidance counselors, and all that. It's just superbly written.
It really is superbly written. And, of course, we certainly are seeing, you and I have spoken about this. They were lucky enough to get the original actors back into the show who are still alive. They managed to do that. They managed to introduce a whole new generation of actors who are as interesting as the original actors are. And we also are getting a lot of baddies back, meaning the bad guys, who are here, and we're just enjoying it. Thank you, Darth Plato. Positive fandom never dies. It sounds like the Goonies, right?
And Cobra Kai.
Absolutely. So one of the questions said, Lady thought that I haven't watched this season yet either, Cobra Kai. There will be spoilers. I have down at the bottom that there will be spoilers. I did just want to say, just so you know, that there has been a lot of talk because this is a Netflix show, right, Russ?
Mm-hmm.
And as a Netflix show, we know that unfortunately there are all these machinations going on for Netflix right now. And these machinations means that there's some kind of instability, or I guess maybe there's some unknown element that we are kind of unsure as to what's going to happen with the next season. I don't think that there won't be a next season. The question is, where will it be? Or let's say, in opposed to having season 6, maybe they'll have some movies. They're talking about movies, but it is still in negotiations. And I think that they're going to keep going with this as long as they can. It would be quite a shame if they stopped. But, I have to say, it has a lot to do with the Silva character, who was brought on in the Karate Kid Part 3 as the bad guy, who happened to be, and I really love that they did this. He starts off in season 4 as a character that is introduced as a Vietnam veteran friend of the other guy, whose name I can't remember just now.
Kreese.
But Russ, certainly this is very interesting to see that they decided to put Vietnam in this, Russ. I mean, when you put that level of information and backstory in, so people can enjoy this and understand this bond that the two of them have, certainly it is a much more poignant story, and you can see the level of involvement. And now we know that the goal for Silva is much more than just taking over dojos in the valley.
Yeah, well, I think the whole Vietnam thing was important. The first shot you see of John Kreese in the original Karate Kid is a picture of him with a machine gun, of himself in Vietnam as part of the special forces. So we know that was part of his life, and they reveal why he is like he is, because nobody starts off as a villain. And we see that Terry Silver in Vietnam was not able to handle the war as well as Kreese was, and we saw that it was Kreese's commander that gave him the no mercy, you must survive at all cost ethos, up until the point where it cost him his his life, which you kind of see in a flashback here. So all of that was really, really important, and that's why um, Terry has been so loyal to Kreese over these years. But you can see that it built it up over a period of a season. That there's also a lot of resentment from Terry Silver, who's now a very successful, highly successful businessman with the world at his fingertips. But in his past, he knows that I'm not going to say a coward, because that would be the wrong thing to say, but he was not as able to handle things as well as John Kreese, who ultimately saved his life and has never let him forget it. I think that's kind of the point. He says, "Look, anytime you need me, man, I'm there for you. You saved my life." But it's kind of like the stick which John Kreese keeps hitting him with, and how far does that debt extend? Well, Silver reaches his limit at the end of the last season. But with this season, it was all high quality stuff. I would disagree with you. I don't want to see much more of this. I do want this story to end. I think we need some sort of resolution to what happens with Cobra Kai. Does Johnny end up, taking the brand of Cobra Kai in the end? Where do they go? Where do they go from here? Well, I read an article. I think it was Schlossberg, one of the writers, was basically saying, the story needs to get bigger, because we now know who the two top karate dojos are in the Valley in California. Where else is there for them to go? Do we have another season of them fighting each other? No. This is why they've introduced this new international kumite, where the stakes are obviously higher, and the competition is going to be stiffer, and the characters are going to be put under all sorts of different challenges for them, as because now they're no longer going to be big fishes in small ponds, right? They're going to be fighting in an international karate tournament. I'm sure there'll be a lot of that stuff. It's really, there's all sorts of breadcrumbs through this. Is Terry Silver terminally ill? Like at the beginning when he was first introduced, he doesn't want breakfast, and his butler says, shall I call the doctor? And then we have that scene when Johnny and Carmen are in the hospital, and Terry Silver gets into the lift. Well, why was Terry Silver in the hospital? What's going on? What's going on with that? That's like a completely random. So is he sick? Because then he's talking about. He often talks especially in this season, about Star Wars Theory picked up on this, but I saw that just literally just now before the show. But I was thinking about this. He keeps talking about the legacy of Cobra Kai, and they've sort of made, and then Daniel sort of retorts to him that Miyagi-Do was around before them both, and it'll be around long after. So I wonder if if Terry Silver is gonna come good at the end of it. Is John Kreese gonna come good at the end of it, and they all team up to defeat whoever the next big bad is? That's what I wonder, because the show's called Cobra Kai, and the show sort of started off with Johnny's redemption of the Cobra Kai brand, if you like, and strike hard, strike fast, no mercy, sir, and it was all kind of cool because it was all very 80s. But that Cobra Kai are now the villains of the piece, and if it was me, I'd be, and these guys are brilliant writers, and they will have thought of all of this. But if it was me, I'd be pushing it to come sort of full circle as to how can Cobra Kai be redeemed.
Yeah, you make a good point. Perhaps the show has run its course, and perhaps it would be more interesting to see it in another country even, and understand whatever battles are going on internally over there, because I think that Cobra Kai has conquered the Valley. If anything, there are plenty more kids asking their moms and dads to sign them up for martial arts for sure. I think after seeing something like this. And I also think that we do see a situation where the Johnny character is, and this is a spoiler, guys, is going to be a father again. So maybe they're implying that his life will change, and that living in Reseda, where he is, might not be something he wants to do this time around, for himself and for his family going forward. I have a feeling he's not going to want to stay there, and maybe we'll decide to move to a place that might be better for his.
This is it. All right. See, you're talking about that there. about him, when he sees the picture of the the baby scan and all that sort of thing, and you get the heavy metal music, and he starts winning, and all of that stuff. It's clear that the character arcs are starting to come to an end. All right, so you've taken Johnny from, Ace Degenerate, which is the first, like ex Degenerate, Ace Degenerate. I just love the way they did that for the first episode of Cobra Kai, and he's built up his dojo. He's lost his dojo. He's been shown to be an irresponsible father. He's trying to be a good father. Even his ex, he's played by the stunning Diora Baird. My God, I've got a big crush on her. Um, even she's starting to sort of look at him in a way that he's changed characters. And now Carmen's pregnant. Where are you going to take Johnny now? He will have learned by the end of the next season, should there be a next season, responsibility. How long can this war of Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai continue? It hasn't run its course yet. But do you want another 4 seasons of this? Because I know I don't. I would like to see it wrapped up, perhaps next season, certainly the season after. One of the things I didn't like about this season, and I didn't like, that I felt could have been done better. There were 2 things that could have been done better here. That was Diaz's reconnecting with his father,
Yes.
and the introduction of Mike Barnes. And I think everyone was so looking forward to Mike Barnes coming back, and I'm not sure that character was kind of handled in the right way. I'm imagining that they probably thought about the idea of him having his own sort of bad boy karate dojo chain or something like that, and I thought, no, let's what could be the most innocuous thing? Mike Barnes, he's a furniture salesman.
Yeah, that was not very strong writing on that part.
And it's almost like they knew that they wanted him in the show because everybody wanted Mike Barnes back, but they didn't quite know how Mike Barnes fitted into all of this. So there was the Miguel and his father, which was kind of like a huge deal for his whole life and was kind of wrapped up potentially in 3 or 4 episodes, and now that seems to have closed. There has been no callback to his dad. Because I was kind of expecting, well, maybe this guy's going to come back into it later on. Maybe this guy can help them, even though, he was once a criminal. He's now no longer a criminal. He's legitimate with this shady past, much like Terry Silver himself. Maybe he's there. They can go to him for help. I thought that they were setting something up, but it seems like they haven't. I could be wrong. They could be bringing this back in the next season. And yet, with Mike Barnes, loved seeing the character back, or the guy back, the actor, but there was so little of who he was back in the 80s to who he is now. Whereas with Lawrence and LaRusso, they're still very much the same characters, just dealing with different things. Not so sure they played it right.
I felt that the Mike Barnes introduction and them burning his furniture store was a little too Roadhouse for me. Not quite would have actually happened. Maybe, another story arc could have been used for him, but like burning down the furniture store doesn't really fit into the show for me. And the part, of course, as you mentioned, where he goes to Mexico to find his dad, probably didn't even need to really be in the story. It could have happened off screen, and then he could come back being disappointed what happened. But it wasn't necessary for him to kind of randomly save this kid's life and, suddenly shack up with him. And it just really
kind of was if they were going to do something with it. And
they had the opportunity to do it when you saw that his father was involved with fights. Clearly, I thought I knew what was going to happen, Russ. But nothing happened.
Yeah, so I don't know but these are minor things.
Yes.
It's kind of like they brought Mike Barnes back, perhaps in the way that they wanted to bring him back. You can imagine that conversation. Well, what's Mike Barnes doing? Yeah, well, maybe we should just make him a furniture. It's going to be too corny if he's still the bad boy of karate. He's another guy that hasn't moved on from the 80s. So you've got Johnny who hasn't moved on, Mike that hasn't moved on, and Daniel who's still indebted to Mr. Miyagi in that way. But these are minor points. The only person that we've got left now is Julie Pierce, right? That's the only part of the Karate Kid legacy that hasn't yet been I guess exploited or revealed by the writers of this show. You know, because they brought back the girlfriend from the Karate Kid 3, which
They did Teen Witch Star.
yes, which is a little bit of a
She looks the
contrivance, as she
same,
turned out to be.
Russ.
Sorry,
She looks the same after like 35 years.
they all do, don't they? Um, it was a little bit of a contrivance, and she ended up being Amanda's cousin. But how, again, I'm willing to. I'm going with you. I'm going with you, show. I love you, so I'm not going to say, oh well, Um, but I thought it was marvelous that she was back in. But now who we don't really have anybody left. We've got Julie Pierce, and I rather feel that she has a role to play in this. Oh my God, Hilary Swank. I mean, I'm sure she's expensive, but I'm sure she'd do it. This seems to be a show that people are doing for the love of doing it. Because actually, when you think about it, most all of the characters, all the actors that are now getting all of this success, Ralph Macchio, William Zabka, etc., this was kind of their first roles, their first big role, if you like, and it sort of set them on their way. And I think the next Karate Kid was Hilary Swank's one of her first roles, so maybe there's a little bit of love there. Maybe she'll come back. Um, I just wanted to pick up something I saw in the chat. Someone
Yes.
was saying it would be great to see a Bloodsport Cobra Kai crossover. Well, there kind of is. And I forget who asked this, but there's two movies. I think they're called Blood Fight or Blood Fist or something like that. But basically, whoever wants to see the Cobra Kai crossover, Darth Plato, right? If you Google William Zabka and Bolo Young movie, it's Bolo, new word, Yeung, Bolo out of Enter the Dragon. They did two movies together, which is very much like The Karate Kid meets Bloodsport, and William Zabka's in both of them. So there you go,
I'll
playing
definitely check it
essentially
out.
Johnny Lawrence. He's exactly the same character, but not Jake Lawrence in this case.
And thank you for telling us that, Russ. Six Scale Cantina says, and Russ, speaking of 70s remakes, how about CBS announcing the reboot of Love Boat and The Real Love Boat, a dating reality show, but also a takeoff of the Love Boat series? Well, Aries, I think we already have a Love Boat combination Star Trek crossover, and it's called Strange New Worlds. Um, certainly solidified themselves as a Love Boat style show when we saw Anson Mount nude in bed with his girlfriend, which we all wanted to see. It is definitely a dating show to me, or perhaps maybe a little bit of Fantasy Island mixed in. But thank you for telling us about that. Certainly going to check out the Love Boat. I love that show when it was out.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
And I did appear on Heath's Tabletop and Fantasy channel this week. So do check that out. And guys, check out Heath's Tabletop and Fantasy. They have a web series called The Cultist. It's really interesting web series that is a parody on role-playing games. So when you get a chance, check out Heath's Tabletop and Fantasy. Also, what else do we have here? Everybody is talking about Hilary Swank. What about the Cobra Kai, or let's say not Cobra Kai, Karate Kid version with the Smiths? Let's say the Smith son who played one of the characters. Do you remember this, Russ?
Sorry, say that first bit again.
Well, I was saying that everybody is talking about Hilary Swank
Yes.
possibly coming back, but what about the Smith? I don't remember his first name, who was also in a Karate Kid film.
Oh,
From what
Will Smith's Jaden Smith.
Yes, Jaden Smith. Do you think anything will ever be done? I know that apparently something about that film and having or keeping the rights to it or to the film is still open or something like that?
Okay, so a couple of things there. Yes, Drew Gordon, Hilary Swank was great in The Hunt 2020, and it seems to be like we're picking Russ's fantasy girls today because Betty Gilpin. Oh my goodness, again, massive crush on her. So see The Hunt; it's a great film.
And
Um,
Dr. Sleep. I'm sorry.
um, yeah. So they've announced the new Karate Kid movie, which is not connected to Cobra Kai and is not connected to the Will Smith um, or Jaden Smith version, I should say. So that news has only just broken, and there was some confusion about this because people are thinking, well, they must be exploiting Cobra Kai. But again, one of the writers and producers of Cobra Kai has come out and said, no, it's don't know much about that. That's a Sony call, um, which seems crazy that you would not leverage this massive hit show that you've got on your hands. Well, interestingly, I saw a Midnight's Edge editorial about this, and it doesn't really matter how successful the show is. They tend to cancel shows after 2 seasons because actors and writers and producers and everybody wants more money. But theirs is not a traditional advertising model where you get bigger advertisers and more expensive slots in between the show. You've bought your Netflix subscription, you keep it or you don't keep it. But yeah, when I saw the announcement, I figured, well, maybe that's it seasons of Cobra Kai, and we're going to get a theatrical end of Cobra Kai. Seems like that's not the case. Seems like the Karate Kid movie is a reboot slash remake. Not Who knows? It could be a great idea, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure they should be announcing it now. I'm wondering maybe they should have done it after the end of Cobra Kai. But as was thrown up in the Midnight's Edge editorial, we don't know if we're getting season 6. I think we probably will. It seems like that they've got enough there, but I think season 6 should be it. I remember because I was watching a retrospective of this recently, and Ralph Macchio said when the first 3 seasons were smash hits, he was interviewed, I think, on Variety or GQ or something like that, and said that no, they've got 6 seasons planned out. I can tell you that. And here we are, 6 years down the line, having, like I said, these characters seem to be reaching the end of their arcs now. Tori and Robbie are back together. Sam and Miguel are back together. Johnny's going to be a dad. Kreese is okay. Kreese has now escaped from prison. Silver has been defeated or thwarted. I would say thwarted at this point. But he'll get out. I mean, he's Terry Silver, right?
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm getting exposed because every time I pull up a share screen, it shows jewelry. So you know what I'm looking at when I'm not just in general, guys. So don't judge me by that, okay? So yes, Russ, Deadline's article, which says Cobra Kai creator addresses Karate Kid spin-off film. And in the article, John Horowitz, who's the co-creator, talks about if he's part of the new film that Sony Pictures confirmed to be coming out in 2024. And he says he'd love to make Karate Kid and Cobra Kai movies and hope to someday. But this one isn't from us or focused on the Cobra Kai cast. Don't know much about it, but wish it well. So that is something that is very interesting to note. And certainly I'm concerned about it now because, just to be honest about it, that last Karate Kid film wasn't quite, just as far as I'm concerned, not it wasn't a bad film, but it certainly doesn't have the same level of entertainment value as, let's say, in Cobra Kai that we've been getting, but it maybe was comparable to the last Karate Kid Part 3, which maybe didn't do as well as it could have.
No, it didn't. I mean, the people were kind of over it by then, and I think Ralph Macchio was like 40 at the time or whatever it was. He'd aged out of the role by then for sure. But having said that, it's one of those ones now that is looked back on fondly, basically because of Terry Silver and, and Mike Barnes. They're the sort of most memorable characters from that film. And I remember, when I was younger, I thought I was all about Cobra Kai. I thought it was much, if I was going to do karate, I'd want to do Cobra Kai. I would certainly wouldn't want to do Miyagi Do. And they capitalized a bit on that, but yeah, not as successful. But as soon as Cobra Kai came out and John Kreese was revealed at the end, every single YouTuber following that show was, when is Terry Silver coming back? When is Terry Silver coming back? I remember Thomas Ian Griffiths was bombarded with, like interview requests, and he had to keep coming out on live streams and chats going, look, there's nobody spoken to me about this. I'd love to do it, but no. And it was the same with Sean Keenan about, Mike Barnes. I remember he was interviewed by Star Wars Theory / Cobra Kai Theory guy a couple of years ago, saying, is Mike Barnes coming back? And he said, yeah, I'd love to, but what's Mike Barnes been doing for all these years? Who knows? I'm sure the writers have got something. So yeah, I love this show. It's nice to come onto Positive Fandom and have no negatives to talk about this week. I thought I'm loving House of the Dragon. I'm loving Cobra Kai. I'm loving the Flash comic that is set in the Snyderverse. It's been nothing but good news. But good news this week. I was just to lean away a little bit from Cobra Kai, unless you was something you wanted to add on that, RM.
No. I certainly think that we said as much as we can, other than to say that just I've been enjoying it immensely. It's been certainly something that I've enjoyed more than I thought I would. And even with the missteps with the arc of the I can't remember the character's name.
Mike Barnes.
Yes, seeing his father for the first time, and perhaps
Miguel. Sorry, Miguel. You're
yes,
talking about
Miguel seeing his father for the first time, and perhaps even the one with the guy in his furniture store. Even with those missteps, it goes to show you that sometimes, even if a show isn't perfect, if the rest of it makes sense and it's a good show, generally good bones, you can kind of say, all right, I didn't really care for that part, but I still enjoyed it immensely. And I can't say that about every show.
Well, you can't say that about many shows, and I think that's often, when you look back at the sort of heady days of the 2000s and the 2010s and all that sort of thing, you had all of these like amazing shows that were on TV, and we were kind of like a bit sniffy about it. And now you get to this era where everything's become really politicized and franchises are getting sacrificed on the altar of messaging and all that kind of stuff. It's so great to, it feels like a Cobra Kai was the sort of one of the few bright candles in a in a very sort of dark television landscape, if you like, when it comes to sci-fi, fantasy, and nerd nonsense. But now we've got House of the Dragon. Who knows? We've also had Reacher, which I know you loved. The Chris Pratt one that I loved.
Terminal List.
Thank you so much, Terminal List. So there's some great stuff coming out. What I did just want to say was we've had a lot of news come out of Warner Brothers Discovery lately. They released a prequel comic to The Flash, which is set in the Snyderverse, which is very, very encouraging. But then we had a series of tweets by Jay Oliva, who did the storyboards for Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 2 and 3. And he has come out, and this is kind of good of him to come out and do it, because he's a trusted source. And I think with all of there's been a hell of a lot of profiteering going on about this. I've seen lots and lots of scoopers coming out, basically reporting the opposite thing. Yes, they've definitely had talks with Zaslav, and yes, Snyder's coming back, and no, they're completely scrapping the Snyderverse, and they're going to turn Scooby-Doo into Superman. And you've literally got this level of gamesmanship going on and clickbaiting going on. Jay Oliver has come out and turned around and said, and I think he's probably spoken to Snyder because the pair of them are pretty close, no, there hasn't been any conversations. And if this, what they have heard about in the upper echelons of Warner Brothers Discovery is, yes, there is a massive amount of support for Zack Snyder, but there's also a massive toxic element. Now, I think he's overplayed it. I don't think that the toxic element, because I'm in it, right? There are toxic people in this in the Snyder fandom, no doubt about it. But it's a tiny minority that make a lot of noise. But to Jay Oliver's point, that doesn't matter if they're a tiny minority. The fact is that yes, Warner Brothers Discovery knows Snyder's got a huge fan base. Yes, they also know that there is a toxic element, and that has been spoken about in the upper echelons of Warner Brothers Discovery. So he has pretty much confirmed there hasn't been any open conversation between Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers. So that's Snyderverse is on ice at least until um, Zack has finished with Rebel Moon and Universe of the Dead. What Oliver goes on to say is show them how much you love Snyder, support him, make his thing successful, and then conversely, he said he was intimating that these people don't give a shit about Snyderverse, not Snyderverse, Batverse, not Batverse. They don't care. They just care about money. So if you can show them that you will give them good PR, so not toxic PR, and loads of money, then you'll have your Snyderverse back. And if you don't, you won't. So there's that. They then released the comic of The Flash, which is set in the Snyderverse. As we discussed on here a few times, my theory is it will be the Snyderverse continuation, but not necessarily with Zack Snyder at the helm. I think Cavill's back. We know Affleck's back. Some sources say Miller's out. I would have thought Miller would have been out before now. They just had Batman Day, and over the past couple of Batman days and the previous regimes, all of Ben Affleck's stuff has been taken out. The whole Batman Day exhibition at Warner Brothers is now Snyderverse stuff front and center, Snyderverse stuff on their promotions. And Snyder appeared in Teen Titans recently, where they did an homage to his Justice League. So it looks like they want to go forward with that base, but not necessarily with Snyder as the kingpin. That's what I think. We'll find out in Black Adam, won't we?
You make a good point, and I do just want to say hello to Norwegian Kryptonian, who couldn't stop by today, but still said hello, as well as Cavantino Cavalryman Che, who talks about Constantine, and Terrier Tiberius Mark. Hi, says Cobra Kai hasn't had a bad season yet, and I can't say that about many shows. Yes, it's good to see you, Terrier. I hope you and your family are well. Well, with this being said, Russ, we're nearing the end of the show.
We are.
Russ.
Someone asked something I just wanted to pick up on before we
Yes.
go. And I can't see who said it. Someone was asking, any thoughts about Constantine, Keanu Reeves Constantine?
Yes, that's Cavalryman Cavantino Cavalryman Che.
Yeah, I do have thoughts on that. Why they couldn't make a Constantine film with Matt Ryan, I'll never know. I do have some love for the original Constantine, the original Constantine Keanu Reeves movie, but again, this Matt Ryan thing is like a Henry Cavill thing. It's like literally you've got the perfect guy. You've already cast him. He's brilliant, and everybody loves him. No, I think we're going to cast an Asian guy. No, I think we're going to go and make the Constantine movie. We're going to bring back Keanu Reeves. What are you doing? That said, it's interesting. And it's interesting because if this goes ahead, this will be the first DC, potentially DC EU movie, greenlit, funded, paid for, and put together by Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery. Everything else, Flash, Shazam, Black Adam, are all done, completed movies that they're tinkering with now, but these are all done under the previous regime. It seems like an odd choice, doesn't it? To go with J.J. Abrams, destroyer of franchises, and Keanu Reeves to make a Constantine movie 15 years after the event of the last one, which wasn't a massive hit. And that's going to be the first thing you bring out. And this could be a stroke of genius because, there's a bit of a Reeves Naissance, I think they're calling it, aren't they? of Keanu Reeves with, you know, Matrix and John Wick, and everybody loves Keanu Reeves. Is it a
Yeah, I love
smart
him. I
move?
love him so much.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's just a weird one for them to, for them, you know, like Constantine, you know, because they've come out and said the Trinity are the most important thing. It's Batman, it's Superman, it's Wonder Woman, and DC is a tentpole property. But we're going to go with somebody really obscure that you might not have heard of, but it's Keanu Reeves, so it's going to be cool.
Yeah,
Weird.
yeah, it is a good point. I think they should change it up and have the British guy play Constantine as the character was before. So I prefer that. He had a great run with a TV show. I think it was in 2014, 15, as well
Hmm.
as seeing him on Arrow. He was great, and Into the Sandman, right?
And
So
Legends of Tomorrow.
yes, so bring him back. He's certainly very interesting to see that way. To answer you, Bloodsport One, I love the new Hellraiser look, and of course, it is apparently consistent. Um, I don't know whether it was in the books or the comic or what it was, but I'm eager to see the new Pinhead. You know, and I was talking to Tom Jr. Jackson about this the other day, is that how much Hellraiser has done for essentially BDSM and sadomasochism. So,
Mm.
you know, thank you, Hellraiser, for bringing that world to so many of us in such an amazing way. What do you think, Russ?
I've seen all of the Hellraiser films. It's interesting. One of the worst ones was, I think it was called Hellgate, which was based on like an online game, but it was made in the very early 2000s or late 90s, so it was all dial-up internet technology. But it starred Henry Cavill and Catherine Winnick before they were famous. Um,
How about
and
that?
then Gary Tunnicliffe made one, and he's worked on all of those, and he
And
did one.
do you like Gary Tunnicliffe, or are you? What are your thoughts?
No, he seems like a nice enough chap. You know,
I
I
like
don't.
I like his work. So
Yeah, I like his work. Yeah, I mean, I don't know him. I've exchanged a couple of emails with him. He seems like a very nice chap.
he's been on Midnight's Edge a few times, and I've had a chance to say hello to him. He certainly is entertaining man, and I think that he has so many great ideas, and I can see why. I know because he's worked. He didn't work on the first Hellraiser, but has worked with the director so often. But certainly an entertaining person, Russ. Also wanted to say, Terry also says that he wished that Rings of Power didn't have the elves draped in curtains from Target. I have to agree with you, Terry.
Mm.
But this is the look they went for. They wanted it deconstructed. I didn't care for it. And this is going to be the last question for the day. Um, are if you were in charge of DC films, what would you do? DC needs something. Well, to be honest with you, and Russ already knows the answer to this one. I know what I would do. This is exactly what I would do. Um, Clearly, I would be bringing back Cavill for Man of Steel or whatever. You know what? Whatever he wants to call it, just to bring Cavill back. And I think it would reinvigorate things. Not that things need to be reinvigorated, but I think it would shake things up, and the internet would explode. This would be this would be if he wants 100 million, I would give him 100 million. Whatever he wants. If he wants creative control, he doesn't want Superman to look a certain way. And clearly, for me, I think that's the reason why the deal hasn't happened yet, is because of this creative control situation. What do you think, Russ? Do you think creative control is the main reason why we don't have Cavill back?
I think I think I might have said this before, but just to reiterate very quickly, I can understand why he wanted a lot of creative control under the previous regime, who had made it clear that they wanted to replace him with Supergirl and replace Batman with Batgirl and go down this road that Batwoman and so many other shows have gone down. He's made it very, very clear that he loves this character and wants to honor this character. And he's spoken about different stories that he would like to tell. He clearly knows what he's on about when it comes to Superman. So if you're there sitting there a year or two ago, looking at the direction that Warner Brothers was taking DC properties with the likes of, Birds of Prey and Batgirl coming out and all this kind of stuff, yeah, I'd insist on creative control because I would see the writing on the wall that I would be basically sidelined in my own movie by Sasha Kaye, as brilliant as an actor as she may be, and as much as everybody loves Supergirl. If you're Henry Cavill and you want to make your Marcus Superman, because every he reads the papers, he knows how much everybody loves him, and everyone has said he hasn't had a proper movie, that we need to see more and more of him. Why would you sign up for a movie that you know you're going to be sidelined in, and you know that your character is going to get schooled in, that you know your character is going to be made to look bad in? Yeah, I can see why he did it. Those pieces are now off the table. And what we've seen being played out is Danny Garcia linking Cavill with everything from James Bond to Highlander to Hyperion in Marvel, or Loki's evil twin, or whatever it happens to be. Like, this guy, he's James Bond, he's everybody, isn't he? So I do think there's a lot of gamesmanship going on, but the proof's going to be in Black Adam. If he doesn't show up at the end of Black Adam, I think Warner Brothers Discovery will rue the day that they didn't deliver on this, because I think it's not so much Joe Public, but Joe Public won't buy the Steelbook. Joe Public won't go back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 17 times to go and see the same movie. Joe Public won't buy the Steelbooks, the director's cuts, the toys, the this, the that. And I think you will lose a massive swathe of your fan base if you do not deliver 2 more movies and some cameos with this man. That's my hot take. That's what I think.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. Honestly, clearly, this is a very critical moment. And honestly, if they don't seize on this soon, I fear that we may lose this Superman forever. But I would also, if I were in charge, I would get Cavill to do this, and I would have Robert, if he were willing, work on this project. Since he's already been in a Superman film, as you guys know, and worked on something like this, although I don't know whether he would say yes, but I certainly would love to see what he could do with this. I think that, he possibly could do something very interesting. I know it's not Star Trek, which is what everybody traditionally would associate Robert with, but I think he could do something with this. So that's how confident I am about that. Russ, where can people find you?
Oh, well, I have a website which Tom put up earlier on, which is www.russellwhitfield.com, or you can email me at contact@russellwhitfield.com. But more importantly, where can we find you, RM?
Well, guys, you can always find me here on Positive Fandom, streaming on YouTube and on Twitch, as well as Odyssey. Additionally, on Monday nights, you can find me on the PGS at 6 p.m. on my show, Ladies of the PGS. Yes, I know it's called Ladies, but it's probably just going to be me this time around, guys. Right after that show at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, you can find me on the 6 Scale Cantina with Aries Tarantine for the Market Show, where I will be his guest on the show. And of course, we're going to be talking all things Star Wars. We're definitely going to be talking about Andor, which premieres on Wednesday.
Does it? So wow, that's sneaked up on me. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping this isn't. I'm hoping this is another House of the Dragon situation, where they've come out and talked a lot of crap about Donald Trumpian allegories and all that kind of thing, and they did the same with House of Dragon about the patriarchy, and it's so well written, it's not that. And I'm kind of, can Star Wars redeem itself with this show? Can it be done?
Yeah. And also I wanted to mention that Chris Gore, a good friend of mine, mentioned that it's Star Wars for adults. I sure hope it is. It looks glossy and shiny and new, and this might be the best Star Wars show we've ever had. As I've said, The Mandalorian is not the best show ever made. It's one of the best ones they've made and given us. But honestly, and hello, Benjamin Wolf. Honestly, I think, excuse me, that Andor has a potential for something we haven't seen before. Sorry. And my throat gets dry. Also, On Friday at 12 p.m., you can catch me on Midnight's Edge in the morning. You can also catch me streaming on Twitch with Lorraine Creole on our male appreciation show. And certainly you can catch me on the PGS on the weekends on Midnight Musing streaming with Robert Meyer Burnett, and here every Sunday on Sunday brunch at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, it's been such a pleasure seeing you all this morning. Russ, it's always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
And for everybody out there, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, always remember to please be kind, everybody, and take care. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.